Well, I wasn't planning on doing a video today, but it looks like plans change, as I've discovered what might be the most ridiculous article I've seen coming out of Kotaku since my time starting as a YouTuber, as our new favorite lolcow over at the website, the new age Alyssa Mercante, John Walker, who just happens to be named after a kind of okay scotch, has come out here and made the most ludicrous statements in regards to the new grifters, as we have found a new target to grift off of, Avowed. And as you guys who might follow my channel know, I've already done one video on Avowed, though I can't be grifting because I'm not monetized, so therefore it is literally impossible for me to grift. But according to John Walker, we've exposed our playbook, we've exposed our grifting ways, and we've exposed that we're nothing but a bunch of liars, as our attack on Avowed is missing the key element of something to attack and to grift off of, instead of just rage baiting for the sake of rage baiting, I guess. It is one of the most ridiculous and laughable articles, with the most ridiculous levels of strawman, whataboutisms, and any other kind of ad hominems you can think of under the sun. This article has no journalistic integrity, it provides zero proof for anything he's pointing out, and it's just one of the most hilariously bad articles I have had the displeasure of reading, and hopefully I can transform this into enjoyable content for those of you who are still addicted to our little grift. As I said, coming from Kotaku, the campaign against Avowed reveals the bigotry that fuels the anti-woke. In its crusade against Obsidian's action RPG, the anti-DEI mob has given the game away, written by John Walker. In 2024, there has rarely been a game announced without a small but tiresomely vocal group of grifters attempting to whip up a controversy for their social media followers. You know, we wouldn't be whipping up controversy if it wasn't there. You can't make a mountain out of an anthill without some kind of fuel for the fire. No matter what the title, and no matter who the developer, every announcement is meticulously scrutinized for any faint sign of a thought crime, an element that could be construed by these charlatans as proof of wokeness. We're not the ones committing thought crime, you guys are literally the ones who police anything for any attempt of bigotry. Do you not remember what happened to Hogwarts Legacy, or what happened to Black Myth Wukong, who refused to kowtow to your abusive mob, and therefore was stripped of any and all rewarded titles? So don't come to me about us being the ones who are looking for thought crime. We just want our games to be good. We don't give a shit who works on the games. All we care about is whether or not the games are good, are palatable, and are made with gamers in mind. You could believe that the sky is purple, cats have 6 legs, and men can get pregnant, and I wouldn't care so long as you are making good games. But John Walker thinks that we take these kind of cries of moral panic and then use that to justify the claim that this speculation notion is spun out to followers as the latest attempt to take away your games. The latest target is Avowed, but in picking on it, those running the grift have rather shown their hand. Now, I'm sure John Walker is a perfectly sane individual, given the fact that he works at Kotaku, and will provide actual evidence as to how we have shown our hand as a grift, just simply abusing an audience that we think, or pointing down and laughing at, and haha, give us your money, idiots, because you guys are falling for what we're saying. Totally. Like any online scam of any note, too many uses of any in one sentence, it's so brazen that it's only more depressing that it works so well. As much as it might infuriate you that someone you know would fall for a cold caller telling them they need to send gift certificates to fix an issue with their Windows operating system, it should be equally upset you that these legions of people fall for the same woke gaming grift over and over and over. With Avowed, the forthcoming Obsidion role-playing game set in the world of Pillars of Eternity, the con is so brazenly laid bare. Yes, of course it still works, but it's so much easier to see how. You want to know how it works? It's simple. We tell people who believe this already that they're not crazy. We tell them that you're not the one who's saying this, everyone else is noticing it too, and everyone hates it just as much as you do. You are not alone as much as the industry wants you to think. You are not alone as much as Kotaku, as much as Obsidian, as much as Microsoft, as much as the entire gaming industry wants you to think. This is a problem. Games are getting progressively worse with every kind of AAA release we get, and you are not crazy. It is actually happening. We are not grifting. We legitimately believe everything we have to say. I would not be in front of this camera if I did not believe it, because guess what? It's not exactly the easiest thing in the world to go in and edit a video. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's easier than literally any 9 to 5, but I'm not getting paid to do this. In a 9 to 5, I'm getting at least $12 an hour to do that. But instead, I am choosing, because this is what I truthfully believe, to spend an hour on research, an hour on recording, and 2 hours on editing every single day to give content that I think people will want to engage with. Not because I want an audience, but because I want to give my thoughts, and that way maybe I can either wake someone up to the reality of what's going on in the industry, or maybe I can make one person feel a little bit better about not believing what the mainstream tells them to think. And more importantly, given the fact that I'm a bisexual man, I think that I can offer an olive branch to people who would be disenfranchised to trust the straight white old man people who currently run this side of the internet. But you know what, John Walker, you're right. You know all about me more than I know about myself. So please illuminate me on how I'm grifting and how it works. And according to him, the shtick works like this. A game is announced, and because it's 2024, you mean modern era, that game may not exclusively focus on a white dude saving the world for the lady in a bikini. Oh my god! Or a sexy lady playing dress up in various bikinis while saving the world. I don't know why the random dig at Stellar Blade, which is one of the best-selling games of this year. I mean, some still do, but this is an industry that creates games that feature a broad range of characters. The grifters recognize this as a useful target for their grift, making claims that the games are artificially altered from what they should have been, based on a desire to be perceived as progressive. Well, no, we're not asserting that. That is literally what's happening. The creator of Avowed literally said, and this is in my other video, you can go check that out, that he is looking to hire exclusively black people into his position so that someday all the old crusty white men can be replaced by black people. He literally made that assertion. I am not claiming that there is an erasure going on. There is literally an erasure going on. So John Walker, my only assumption is that you are so drunk off of your own namesake that you can't think straight. It is all literally being done for the sake of progressiveness. Then they use this to convince a large number of dissatisfied young men. Yeah, unfortunately my demographics are mostly men, but that's because men are the ones who play video games. See how that works? The reason most men care about this is because men play video games at a significantly higher rate than women do, and while I'm sure John Walker is going to disagree, claiming 50% of games are played by women too, that's not entirely true. 50% of games are played by women who are playing Candy Crush, and not, I don't know, Avowed. That the world is trying to take away from them their last vestige of entertainment. Well, you destroyed film, TV, anime, animation, comics. What's left for us anyway? The only place left where they feel represented and prioritized. Well, no, we don't give a shit about either of those things. Representation is overrated and for people who aren't secure in their own personal identity, and nobody wants to be prioritized because then you are being treated like a child. The only hope is to rise up and fight for what's rightfully theirs, and if they like, give some money to the grifter for a project that never sees daylight. Now, I'm not really sure what he's referring to in that point. The only person who I know who has that issue is Ethan Van Sciver, and none of us are associated with EVS because, well, we don't like smoking meth with parking lot lesbians and we don't like to lick urinals. Though pie is pretty good. The other people who frequently request money are actively in the process of crowdfunding, such as Grummz, who is actively working on a game as we speak, or, you know, people like Hypnotic, Yellow Flash, and Erotic, who never actually ask for super chats as anything more than a joke. People super chat them because they want to support them. These people have channels because people requested to support them. Hypnotic does his daily live streams not because he thinks he's going to get money from it. He did his daily live streams because he saw that the audience wanted that. They wanted to hang out with him on a daily basis and interact with him, and the money came not because he asked people to pay him money, but because they wanted to. Except with Avowed, those behind the grid forgot to include a couple of vital stages. They forgot how to develop the spurious claims on which to condemn the project, failing to identify something that had been artificially included or an element that had been censored in the names of wokeness. And in doing so, they made incredibly clear what it is that's really at the bottom of all of this: bigotry. You're so right. You're so right, John Walker. You caught me. I just hate all them homosexuals. You caught me. I'm just a homosexual who hates other homosexuals. How did you know? But what I'm absolutely certain of is the fact that John Walker isn't going to substantiate a single one of his claims he's making. And I'm not saying that only because I've already read the article, but because it's in these guys' playbook. They say we have a playbook, they've got the real playbook. I show proof, he shows nothing. Around the time of Gamescom this year, the usual people started loudly condemning Avowed as the next piece of woke mind virus addled DEI. Well, at least you said it, not me. Why? That what sin had it committed? Had a mission leaked in which you forced up a gay, polycule adopted cat identifying trans shot at an abortion clinic? You know, John Walker, you do really good on our side. The only problem is you actually have to believe what you say to be on our side. Nope, it was this image. And first of all, bullshit. It's bullshit because I never saw anything like this. No one I know saw anything like this. This picture was not the center of any controversy that actually mattered. I've literally never seen this picture, and I can say that I am as much attached to my computer screen as any other person, with the exception of EVS and John Walker. Now, of course, you could all sway around any claim of me saying that it's bullshit that you're saying that this was used to say this game is racist, by simply providing proof. Now, of course, there have to be some caveats. You can't just provide any picture of someone saying that, because what one guy said doesn't represent anyone else, because there is no such thing as a monolithic community. Instead, what you would have to do is prove Endymion, Grummz, Elon Musk, Yellow Flash, Hypnotic, any of the major people. You'd have to prove that one of them said this game is woke DEI garbage because there are no white people in it. But, coincidentally, none of that's included. See it? The intolerable act of evil? No? Goodness me, didn't tell me the woke mind virus had got to you too? There's no white man! That's right, this violently racist piece of marketing includes a black woman, a white elf-like woman, a blue man, and an ambiguous race dwarf. How more clearly could the developer be saying that it wants this game to be exclusively played during Drag Queen Story Hour at your local library? Well, it doesn't say that because there are no children here to sexualize. And I also didn't happen to notice that there are no white men in this. Because unlike you, Johnny, I'm not a racist. Unlike the person you're claiming to be. Because you know how I know that you would have an issue? Because if this had no black people, you would react the same way. Don't believe me? Look at the way that people are covering Kingdom Come Deliverance. As your own publication, a couple months ago only, had lambasted Kingdom Come Deliverance once again for your perceived notion of racism. Given the fact that Kingdom Come was a racially homogenous game, given the fact that it's set in a racially homogenous area and time period, being Poland during the medieval ages. As you say that this medieval RPG sequel will be what the first one was supposed to be, with the first point you mentioning. The fact that it will be an ambitious and intriguing 2018 medieval RPG that had plenty of technical flaws, and also became a lightning rod for controversy over its director's comments about race and historical accuracy. Your big contention with Kingdom Come Deliverance when the first one came out was all about race, because the developer made it explicitly clear there were no black people in Poland in the medieval ages, and therefore there are no black people in my game set in Poland in the medieval ages. It makes sense. Just as I would expect there to be no white people in an African game set in any time period where colonialization wasn't a thing, and I wouldn't expect any white people in Asia during any period where colonialization wasn't a thing, or any other country. If a place should be racially homogenous, then the game should equally be racially homogenous, regardless of the race that is being covered. So I don't want to hear any of this bullshit coming from you. Honestly, do you even notice that fact feels kind of weird? I'm a white guy living in a country that's 90% white in an area of a country that's 95% white, and as such, I'm fairly used to seeing people who look like me everywhere I go, but the thought didn't cross my inherently racist mind. I'm the last person who can deliver that ghastly, I don't even see race bullshit people like to say, instead of thinking, yet I saw some people in a fantasy world, fantasy game people. I'll give them this, though. I did notice one of them had blue skin. That stood out. Fucking typical DEI inclusion initiative. If I see a blue person flying a plane, I'm getting off there, and then. Well, John Walker, you bigot, blue people are really good at flying planes. It's cars they can't drive. But here we once again see John Walker's extreme disingenuity, because he did see race to make that complaint, because I never saw that as criticisms, and I never saw that. But, let's take it one step further. Let's say John Walker did in fact see somebody of credibility complaining about the racial makeup of this poster. Now, he provided enough proof, so I still don't believe it happened, but let's say it did happen. Whose fault is that? Is that the fault of us, or is that the fault of the industry that has programmed us to assume that when a white person is not included in an artificially diverse setting, that it is intentional? As we have had countless games and countless projects completely, deliberately ignore white people with a deliberate stance on it as they don't want it to be seen. As the recent leak from Endymion came out, they want there to be no white playable characters in the upcoming Star Wars game, though of course I don't know the validity of that statement because I didn't see the leak, but that's what he reported. There is an evident agenda to do this kind of stuff, and if we simply notice the pattern, does that make us racist? The answer is no, because it is you who programmed us to be this way. I don't want to notice race. I never noticed race before, and I still, for the most part, do not notice race, unless it is something that prompts me to see it. For instance, if I see someone of every single, if it looks like a rainbow out there of natural skin colors, a rainbow, except for one is missing, that's going to raise some questions. I'm going to ask if that was deliberate, not because I want to, but because you programmed me to. It's a bit of a hen-egg situation. And this alone, the entire scam was shown for what it really is, just unabashed racism, homophobia, and misogyny. That's it. It's so boring, but it's all it is. Racism, homophobia, and misogyny are profitable, so they are the focus. Where is it? John Walker, you claim to have seen one instance. I would love to see some substantiation. A little bit of proof to prove that it's based in any of that. if you can prove a single one of their mainstream claims on our side, because you can't pull a random Joe, because there is a random Joe who believes anything you want him to. If you can find me a substantial piece of evidence from one of us grifters for simply pointing out that something just because it has race, just because it has sex, or just because it is gay, is bad inherently, I would love to see that so I can condemn it. But I've yet to see any of it, and you have yet to provide any of it, so therefore, your point is moot. They'll prove how not racist they are by pointing out the furious ongoing, although mostly forgotten, campaign against Ubisoft for including a black man in an Assassin's Creed game set in Japan. You're going to substantiate that claim by saying whether or not it's true or not? Obviously, you're saying that's a fallacious claim, but it is evidently not a claim, because it doesn't show that we're racist. What it shows is that we're consistent. Racial homogeneity should be racially homogenous. And once again, what do you have to say to all the black people out there who are actively in this campaign? The DA, MSK, Hypnotic, who's Latino, Quarterback Black Garrett, although he doesn't really look it, so I guess we can't count him. And a slew of other creators who are utterly diverse. And what about X-Ray Girl, who's a woman? And what about me, who's bisexual? What do you have to say to us? Are we just profiteering against self-hatred? If so, why would we do that? Especially me, because I'm not making any money. Why would I be profiteering off of self-hatred if it is actively harming me? There is a very small movement amongst people in a sphere adjacent to mine, though significantly more extreme, who are arguing for the removal of gay marriage. That is something that is actively against my best interest. If I really believed there was a threat of that happening, why would I be supporting it just for a little bit of cash if it means that later down the line I'm going to be subjected to extreme levels of discrimination? Make it make sense, because in reality the behaviors that you are doing, the actions you are taking, are what creates these bigotries in the first place. You are programming a new wave of overgeneralizing people who will eventually meet these descriptions. They do not currently, but one day, if you keep erasing white people deliberately and keep elevating other groups artificially, what's going to happen is you will create people who will consume nothing that contains diverse castes. Not because they're racists, but because you told them they're evil. And if you call a man a monster long enough, he will live long enough to prove you correct. That first Avowed fuss came and went in the summer, the game permanently marked to be condemned. Once again, where? Please, substantiate a single claim. But he continues on, because there's an actually real bit of criticism this game really did receive from us anti-woke crowd, and that is around the pronoun thing that I covered the other day. But oh boy, what bigger grift could the grifters have received when November's Avowed previews came around? Because when a bunch of journalists boo, hiss, at least he gets the right energy. We're given access to the opening few hours of the game. It was revealed that the game's character creation had options for they, them pronouns. Sound the klaxons! I was one of those SAW lamestream media journalists. Come on, the term is Uranus, and you know that. I spent 6 hours playing the game and had an absolutely brilliant time with it. That's what you're paid to say. Now, I will give him a little credit. He gives some context to the game that I have been missing, because honestly, I don't know much about this game. I hadn't really heard about it until the controversy started. And then I saw some gameplay. I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. The poster that they have is with the mushroom skeleton. It's super cool. I would honestly get that on like a disc plate or something and put that on a wall. If I could afford disc plate. Those are just cheap knockoffs I got from Comic-Con. But it was a local Comic-Con, so it was really cheap. And someone else took me, so I didn't pay for my ticket. And it was 2 for 3, so I could actually justify buying them. But the bit of context is that this is the third game set in the Pillars of Eternity canon, which is a world primarily focused on matters of the misuse of dark magic and the questionable nature of its deities. Pretty cool. Avowed is a game set about a disease called the Dream Scourge, a nice name, causing people to grow mushrooms all over their bodies and go insane. Your character, who can be the whitest man you ever fucking saw in your life if you'd like, is an envoy for a wannabe colonial nation, and you can choose to be as pro or anti that as you want with the game's broad choices of dialogue, and that in and of itself is a good thing. But of course, the question is, how stilted is the dialogue? Is it really a neutral field that we're allowed to engage in, or are we punished for choosing the pro side, and are we unjustly rewarded for being anti? You leave out some nuance when you leave such a stilted review like this that begs the question of authenticity and, well, your journalistic integrity, though as we all know, Kotaku doesn't have any. As much as I tried, I couldn't find a single woke thing to do. I even chose boring old she/her pronouns in the character creator because my character was a woman with excellent fungal madness growing out of her face. The other thing is, based on the Overton window, What you deem to be woke and what I deem to be woke are completely different metrics. Because you also notice you never define what you would say is those kind of things, partially because you are literally incapable as you lack the brain power, but also because by defining it, you give it power. And so you avoid that so you can continue your own personal grift of obfuscating and calling whatever you want woke, under the straw man you're using to describe us. But oh boy, are the grifters on fire about Avowed. They saw the previews about how you could hit spiders with swords, and they saw the few that mentioned the pronouns. Well, none of them actually mentioned it because if you were an actual journalist, you would have mentioned the fact that under the contract, you're not allowed to show any gameplay from the first 5 hours of the campaign. I think it was 5 hours. I could be wrong on that number, but you cannot show any gameplay of the first couple of hours. And then the fact that the only reason we knew about the pronoun thing is one streamer showed a pause menu. They showed your character menu where in the top corner, it had your pronouns listed for you to see, as if you wouldn't know that, because you're the one who selected them when you selected the body type of your character. It didn't seem particularly exciting to me, so I didn't think to mention it, is what John Walker continues with, and that was that. They were proven right. That earlier picture failing to feature Jeff from accounting was all the evidence they needed, and they'd been proven correct to declare the game would cause DEI detectors to start shrieking. In the last week, they have been sending out absolute deranged messages about how the game is doomed, because one of its art directors tweeted something about Elon Musk about is in deep trouble. They posted to each other on X, their brows furrowed in concern over the severity of it all. Well, okay. Lots of issues. First of all, going back to the picture up here, this was not enough to classify it as woke. This is what's known as a red flag. For instance, what your entire personality is centered around. That picture, even if someone had an issue with the diversity on it, is not enough to be worth them basting the poster over or the product over. That is not enough to rake it over the coals. It is simply a, hey, be on your lookout. Look out for actual signs of real issues in this game because it has a bit of a red flag on it. So how about you stop with that straw man that you are falsely attributing to us that you never even bothered to prove we had an issue with? And second of all, you said one of its art directors. He is not just a pencil pusher, some nobody in the company. He is the art director, the person who is in control of the art direction of the game, and a person who has direct oversight to hiring practices at this company. This isn't just somebody who's a no one, someone who corporate doesn't even know the name of. This is a person who actually has influence over the game, who's gone over to Blue Sky, the center of all the PDF files, to completely bitch and lambast Elon Musk, literally the best video game player in the world currently as of Diablo. And more importantly, even if you hate Elon Musk and you have this much of a position in a company, maybe don't attack him when 60% of the audience agrees. Because yes, horrendously, the world's richest bigot, how is he a bigot? I'd love for you to substantiate that claim, has been posting about Avowed 2, condemning his use of pronouns and deliberately reinterpreting the art director's mocking sarcasm to be a statement of intent to be racist against white guys. Okay, now you must substantiate this claim as well. What is the statement that the art director made that is being misinterpreted? How is it being misinterpreted? The only statements I'm familiar with are being completely legitimately interpreted as, and if you don't think they're being interpreted correctly, I wholly recommend you go and check out my other Avowed video where I go through all of those tweets. There is no misconstruing. There is no reinterpreting. There is no obfuscation. These posts were legitimately racist posts. It's the exact same playbook described above of taking something incredibly minor entirely out of context. Nothing like that's been done. Sure, okay, the pronoun thing is a little minor, but it's not being taken out of context. It is in the context it is in. And the context is we are fed up with having this shoved down our throats. We do not support this. We do not believe in this cognitive dissonance that you call a gender identity. You do not get to choose your pronouns. Pronouns are not a title. They are a descriptor. And Matt Hanson, the art director in question, had been giving people warnings and firing people for misgendering incidents. So no, you don't get to choose that, and that is not an appropriate system to have. There is no system, especially one that is set in medieval Europe, because this game is clearly set in medieval Europe by the style of it, that this would be something that would be substantiated inside of the game. This has no place in any game, let alone this one. The guy is laughing at those who think the game is negative towards white people, giving that it's not even vaguely something the game's about. It doesn't have to be about that. Remember, Bridge, the entire idea is intersecting this intersectionalism into every single section of the game. Every single part of hiring, every part of writing, every part of coding, every single aspect of the game being filled to the brim with intersectionality. That is the entire point. The game doesn't have to be about anti-whiteness to be anti-white. Reframing it as something serious, it is serious to discriminate against the vast majority of the gaming audience. It should not be acceptable for any company in the gaming industry to be racist and sexist against white guys, wrote Musk, and then acting entirely on that reframed imaginary version, declaring that the game is already doomed to fail based on its fictional enormity. Okay, these are real this is not fictional. We're not making this up. This is actually present, and if you had an ounce of journalistic integrity, you would address that. Furthermore, I find it hilarious that you failed to address the claim that you included of Elon Musk. You put it in here as if it is some kind of ludicrous claim that it is wrong to discriminate against white guys. Are you saying it's okay to do that? It's not okay to discriminate against anyone for any reason whatsoever, unless that person just doesn't shower, talking to, the largest demographic in the world. But it's not okay to discriminate against people for traits they cannot change. Now, this might be my favorite paragraph in this entire article. Hot off the back of their success in destroying another RPG, Dragon Age: The Veilguard, we destroyed it. Yep, it was us. It wasn't BioWare. It wasn't EA. It wasn't whatever the hell that transformer that worked on it was. It wasn't all of them who destroyed it. It was us. It was us, the Chuds, the grifters. We destroyed a game we didn't work on, which utterly flopped thanks to the efforts of its miserable million sales in its first 2 weeks. They refer back to the extraordinary win as proof that Avowed is doomed to the same terrible fate. We're winning, they endlessly message their gullible followers, and then that's true. Well, okay, maybe Dragon Age sold 1 million copies to retailers. Problem is, they did not sell 1 million copies to the audience. We are the ones who pay for the games, not the retailers. The retailers will be sending their excess copies back once it is no longer self-viable, and you will be losing all that money you made off of the retailers. They are not your audience, we are. And 1 million sales in 2 weeks is a pitiful target to hit for a AAA game that is 10 years in the making. That is so beyond pitiful, it's not even worth laughing at.
It'd be funny if it weren't so pathetic. No, what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.
And you know what? We are winning. We are winning because the biggest games of this year have all been DEI free. And all the big DEI games have failed utterly and hilariously. We are winning, and there is no way against that. As much as it dismays you to hear that, John Walker, because you hate yourself so much. It's just boring racism, homophobia, and misogyny. Once again, substantiate your claim. Folks, that's it. That's the entire grift. You play the venal nature of the disaffected, you feed latent bigotry and resentment, and you drop in a way to give you money. Cha-ching, but a quiet cha-ching, because it's only so effective, such that you have to exhaustingly maintain the loop until eventually someone with a louder voice usurps you. Where? This also relies on the claim that the market is competitive. The anti-DEI grifter market is not a competitive market. People will stream over top of each other and everyone gets views. People post videos at the same time. I am not sacrificing watching one creator to watch another. I make time to watch them both. Avowed reveals this for what it truly is. The game hasn't replaced anyone with a minority representing character. It hasn't changed the length of the schoolgirl's dress. It hasn't removed a reference to something unpleasant that got through in a version from the 1990s. None of the usual massive crimes. It just had a picture of some people, an entirely ignorable tick box on the character creator screen, and a sarcastic art director who thinks Toolbag Elon Musk is a toolbag, but they're going after it too, because more than anything else, it hasn't made any special effort to center its straight white man in its marketing, because when it's all stripped away, that's all this is about, pure bigotry. Another excellent sentence, filled to the brim with lies, strawman, and disingenuity. First of all, you assume that our issue is the replacement exclusively. That's only one of the problems. You assume that our issue is we want to goon to a bunch of cartoon girls. Maybe the issue is actually just censorship. Hasn't that ever crossed your mind? You assume that we get upset when they remove something racist from a game from the 1990s. Well, the issue is it wasn't racist to begin with. You're just being overly sensitive. You once again harken on the people picture that nobody complained about. that you failed to substantiate that claim, and therefore, as far as I'm aware, no one complained about it. It is your job as a journalist to substantiate the claim that you make. If you were to substantiate it with some major person, some person who actually mattered to our cause, had said those things, then I would agree with you on that point, and I would stop hearkening on that point. But even if somebody did say that, it is still your fault that it is a problem. And then an entirely ignorable tick box. Well, if the tick box is so insignificant, why did you include it? It takes more effort to put something in a game than to not put it in. And furthermore, we don't know how involved this tick box is because we haven't seen it. If it's something like at the bottom of the final character creation page, there's an option to change your gender, your pronouns. Whereas your pronouns are given to you by body type, type man and type woman. Of course, we know the game's going to do type A, type B, or not even name the types. But the male type is going to go first, because it always does, because these people are sexist. No, I'm kidding. They're not sexist at all. Well, actually, they are, but not in that regard. If it was such a small, insignificant thing, if it was hidden a little bit, so you had to find it, how you had to linger on the last screen to see it, and your pronouns were generally chosen by the gender of your character that you chose, then nobody would complain. Pronouns in video games are a problem because the industry made it a problem. It was a problem because you literally could not continue Starfield without selecting your pronouns, which is absolutely ridiculous. You had to select pronouns in Dragon Age, which is absolutely ludicrous. You have to engage with it, and that's why it's a problem, because you keep shoving it down our throats and keep trying to force it on children. It's that simple. And once again, this claim that it has to create an effort to center a straight white man in its marketing, what about Stellar Blade? Stellar Blade doesn't have any white or male leads. I don't know the sexuality of Eve, because I'm pretty sure Eve is a robot, so it doesn't matter anyway. But Eve is a woman, and she's Korean. I don't even think there's a single white character in the game. We don't care. It has nothing to do with our identity. What about Black Myth Wukong, biggest selling game of the year, highest player count? Has nothing to substantiate this claim, because there are no humans who are male in this game. There are no white people in this game, because it is set in racially homogenous China, where most of the characters are animals. What about Tales of Kinzaru Zhao, which, yes, it failed. Yes, it was pushed back against that by us. Not because of the protagonist. In fact, Hypnotic says the game is excellent, including the protagonist and the story told. Our only issue was because the developer decided to attack players instead of embracing us. We had no issues with the character, even though he was black and there were no white men in that game. We had no issue with that. So why is it only an issue when the game fails because it meets other criteria problems? And most importantly, the biggest piece of bigotry in this entire article is the notion that you insist on painting all of us as a monolith. You insist on referring to all of us as only one kind of person, only one kind of identity, only one kind of belief. You insist that every single one of us white men only have an issue with this because it doesn't have white men. You assume that all of us grifters are white, straight men, ignoring all of the black, Latino, Asian, Hispanic, and mixed race people, ignoring all of the women, ignoring the small number of trans and non-binary people, which is about equal to the amount of the population, because the amount of the population is incredibly tiny, and ignoring all of us homosexuals, bisexuals, lesbians, gays, whatever you want to call us. All of us are in here too, and you are ignoring all of us. In a sense, reinforcing the kind of bigotry you claim to be fighting against by erasing our voice because it doesn't align with your politics. None of us are grifting. None of us are saying things we don't believe, at least none of us who have a following. Because those who have a following only get that because they are authentic. People have a way of noticing when someone's authentic and when someone is lying and grifting. And they respond in accordance. So how about this, John Walker? How about you substantiate a single one of your claims? How about you try understanding things from our perspective? How about you try talking to one of us? Your job is not very stable. Alyssa Mercante was fired. Kotaku had massive layoffs. Your parent company is looking to sell your brand as we speak, and you think it's a good idea to run your mouth and distance yourself from the audience you're already so disenfranchised from? Is that a smart call for you to make, to attack us grifters who are just trying to maintain the industry that you need to survive? Because you only get clips because you are covering us. Yes, I gave you a click. I'm not embarrassed by that. Whatever, my clip doesn't matter too much. But you only get clicks because you attack us. So how about you cut it out? How about you try being genuine for just a moment And maybe you realize that we're not a bunch of lying grifters. We know what we're talking about, and we only talk about it because it would matter to us. And you know what, John Walker? This is an open invitation. You can reach out to me on Twitter at @arzachats, or leave a comment in this video, and I'll get back to you, and we can set something up. We can talk, and I will gladly debate you. I am certain that you have many years on me of experience, both in the field and just in life in general, as I am a fairly young individual. So you will realistically have the upper hand. You can bring anyone you want to the call. I will come as myself, by myself. And I will gladly discuss and disprove any point you can throw at me. And you know what? Even better, we can live stream it so that my audience, the people in my sphere, can call me out on my bullshit if I get something wrong. And you can prove to all of them that maybe I am just a grifter. But that's pretty much all I've got for you guys today. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about all this bullshit coming from John Walker's mouth, and I will see you guys on the next one.